They bought my sister a place to live with the money I had saved for college. She had left her baby on their door with a note asking me to take care of him 2 years before they called me. They were scared. About 2 years ago, I got an acceptance letter from one of my dream schools, and some great news: I had been given a grant. It looked like everything was going well for me. Part-time work helped me save as much money as possible for college because I was smart. I saved money for college so that I would have something to use if I needed cash for something unexpected, or if my grant didn't cover everything. I worked hard to save because I didn't want anything to go wrong. Getting into college was already a big deal, but getting a grant made it even better. I felt like all my hard work had finally paid off in the best way possible. I was glad that the college savings money I had been putting away could now be used for any other bills I would have while I was there. That's it. At that point, I didn't have my own savings account. When I worked part-time, the money I made went straight into my mom's pay account so that everything would work out better. I trusted her completely with it. Before I went to college, I always thought my mom would send me that money back without any trouble. It was my reward for working hard, and it was supposed to help me pay for school. Something very different from what I thought would happen did happen, though. Not long after that, I got my grant. I had to sit down and talk. The people told me in a very calm voice that I didn't need the college savings money I had been saving because I had been given a grant. They told me that since most of my fees would already be paid, they wanted to put the money I had saved for my sister's future instead. I was shocked to the core. They told me. It came out of nowhere that my selfish brother would get the money, even though I had worked hard for it. Let me set the scene by telling you a bit more about my sister Caroline. Caroline has always made things hard for her family. Caroline has never had to work hard or follow the rules, but I have. No matter what she does, she always gets away with it. The way my parents treat her makes you forget that we're only 3 years apart. For them, it doesn't matter how old she gets, they act like she's still a child. They don't want her to have any responsibilities. She will never have to deal with the real world because they put her in a bubble. She always got away with things I never did when we were kids. I was told over and over to be responsible and work hard, but my parents, particularly my mom, would protect Caroline whenever she did something wrong, naturally telling her oldest child that he or she could never be wrong. No matter if my sister was wrong or if other people were involved, it didn't matter. My mom always managed to make it look like she was the one who was wronged. Caroline was around 14 years old at the time. She was caught making fun of little girls at school. It was said that she had been making fun of them for weeks. Caroline's school had to call a meeting of my parents to talk about it because things got so bad. A lot of kids and adults had seen her pick on other people, which was very bad. Still, my mom couldn't believe what she heard when she spoke about it. Caroline, of course, broke down in tears in the middle of the meeting and said nothing was true. My mom chose to believe her daughter's tears over the facts because she didn't think about whether her daughter was really in the wrong. They got into fights with her and, yeah, even the headmistress. They were sure that Caroline was being charged wrongly. Her sweet daughter would never be mean or nasty to anyone, she said, so she felt better. The person who got hurt did it to make Caroline look bad, she said. Finally, Caroline was fired after only 1 week of being on leave. But she knew she wasn't really in trouble because my mom wouldn't accept the truth. That was the end of her story. No one ever told her off for what she did. Things got worse. She got into even more trouble this time. She was already breaking the rules by smoking at school, but that wasn't the worst of it. Not only did she smoke pot, but she also tried to sell it, which was a much worse crime. This time, the school's leaders had proof that couldn't be harmed. Caroline had done something wrong that not even my parents could talk her out of. Someone else saw what happened too. Caroline was pretty much kicked out of school when they found out about everything. That was a turning point. My mom had always been able to get out of taking responsibility, but now she couldn't. She couldn't talk her way out of it or blame Caroline. My mom didn't even let Caroline deal with the consequences. She quickly went into what I can only call damage control mode. She didn't want this event to ruin her idea of Caroline as the perfect, honest daughter in this family. So let's not talk about what really happened. The story my mom told our family and other cousins was very different. She told people that she wanted Caroline to get the best education possible by going to a fancy school a long way from home. Because she was so well known, Caroline had a hard time getting into any school in our area. They did not want to talk about how bad what had happened really was. They were afraid that people would learn that their nice daughter had been kicked out of school for something as bad as selling and smoking pot. The fancy school was just a lie to keep their and Caroline's goodwill. Others thought my mom was sending Caroline to a fancy, pricey private school of her choice to help her do well and get better chances. This pick definitely cost a lot of money. The private school my parents chose for her was way too expensive for them. They had a hard time paying for it. These things were done, though, to keep up the image of Caroline as a rich girl who went to the best school in our neighborhood and was way ahead of everyone else. It was clear that my parents would spend a lot of money to hide Caroline's mistakes and bad behavior. She should have learned her lesson, or at least tried to change after getting kicked out of school, caught smoking pot, and caught selling it. But no, that was not true at all. Caroline was last seen in the middle of the night soon after she started going to that fancy private school. That night, someone called my parents. Like she always does, my sister wrote a letter telling Nick, her boyfriend at the time, that she loved him and couldn't wait to leave him for good. My parents were scared at home and did everything they could to find her. Are they crazy? They called her friends and the police to try to find any clues or leads about where she might have gone. After several tense days of looking, the police finally found her. Caroline had been at a friend's house the whole time. There was no way my sister was going to go home when my parents and I tried to get her. Instead, she told my parents that she wanted to marry Nick, him right away. They tried to talk her out of it for hours. Caroline asked my mom to finally give in, but she didn't make it a rule or tell her to go back and finish school. They agreed that Caroline would finish school, and once she did, my parents would let her marry Nick. They even said they would give Caroline and Nick all the money they could after they got married. Are you sure about that? It really did happen that way. Caroline finished what she said she would do. She didn't go to college or think about her future when she turned 18. Instead, she married Nick. My parents were there for them the whole time, just like they said they would be. They found a place for Caroline and her new husband to live. Caroline and Nick's parents agreed to pay their rent every month since neither of them had a steady way to make money. Nick didn't have any parents around, which made things even worse. My parents were always in charge of him and Nick. I didn't understand why my parents were making Caroline's life so hard, even though she had caused so much problems. It was their hard-earned money that kept her married, paid her rent, and took care of her and her husband in general. I was always told to work hard in school and get a part-time job to make money when I was younger. I got more angry when I realized that my sister always got things for free. We've always had to deal with this kind of favoritism. Caroline is always secure, no matter what she does. The money I had saved for college felt like it was taken from me and given to her instead. It feels like more of the same old story. I talked to them. That's why they wouldn't tell me why they were giving Caroline my money. I didn't get it. They couldn't take that money from me because I had saved it for years to help pay for college. That's when my parents told me the real reason they picked that option. Caroline just found out she's going to be a mom soon. I almost fell out of my chair when my dad told me he was going to be a grandfather soon. He was so proud. Both he and my mom were so happy that they didn't care how I felt. This was good news for them because it meant a new start, a new child to look forward to. I couldn't help but wonder how Caroline would handle having a child when she has a hard time managing her own life now. It was already hard for her and her husband to take care of their own child. My mom just brushed these fears off when I told them about them, which is what she always does when I bring up a good point about Caroline's bad choices. On the off chance that Caroline's husband Nick had just gotten a good job, she told her that he would be able to help her and the baby from now on. To be honest, my mom said it like this new job would make all their money troubles go away. That's when she really dropped it. They bought Caroline and Nick a brand new apartment and let them live there. You can stay there for free. This got rid of the thing that was giving Caroline the most stress. I was going to use my money to buy my sister a house in that area so she could easily start a family. They were ready to spend a lot of money on a house so Caroline wouldn't have to worry about anything. I didn't understand it. When I saw what Caroline had been through lately, it made all the late nights, part-time jobs, and sacrifices I had made seem pointless. I was told to leave again so that she could be cared for. Even when I got into my dream college with financial aid, my parents had never been this proud or excited about my accomplishments. I was sick of always failing in every way that mattered to them. Even though I had been a good daughter who worked hard and did her best to make them proud for years, It was a clear moment for me. No matter what I did, I knew I would never get the praise or thanks I deserved. Could they not like me for what I had changed into? If not, I may need to stop trying to get them to agree with me. I didn't have to fight to win their love anymore. I quit fighting with them after that. At that point, I didn't see why I should try to reason with people who were so prejudiced. Instead, I shut down completely, splitting my thoughts from what was going on. There was nothing I could do but wait for my turn to leave. As the start date of college got near, I worked on getting ready for the break. I kept my head down and thought about how many days it would be until I could finally leave this bad relationship. But I heard my parents talk more than once in those last few weeks about their big plans for my room after I moved out. They were already planning to turn it into a bedroom for Caroline's unborn child, who would one day be their grandchild. It looked like they had forgotten everything about me. My room would be changed to fit the wants of a kid who hadn't even been born yet. And that was the plan. They were thrilled at the thought of taking care of Caroline's baby and giving her a room in their house. When it was time to move, my dad didn't even offer to help me pack or move my things. I was fortunate to have friends who were there for me. I felt so much better once I got used to my new life at college. They helped me get my room set up. For the first time in years, I wasn't living with the weight of my parents' favoritism or in a house where my efforts and successes were taken for granted. Being away from my family let me live my life without worrying about being bad enough or being compared to my sister all the time. It's been 2 years since I last thought about anyone else. It's been fun and busy to be in college. I've made a great life for myself. I've worked hard in school, and I also work as a server part-time. I was finally free from the unfair favoritism in my family that had been going on for a long time when I moved out. They kept their word in the end and turned my old room into a nursery for Caroline's baby Jimmy. I only saw him for a short time when he was born. Caroline and I have never been close, so we don't talk much. When it was clear I had nowhere else to go, I stopped going back to my parents' house too. They have only checked in on me when they needed something from me in the last 2 years. Over time, I got used to it. I stopped believing that my life and goals would ever change. We hadn't talked in a long time, so when my mom called me early this morning, I was shocked. She asked me right away if my sister had called. The sound of her voice shaking showed that she was scared. I didn't know what to say, so I told her no because Caroline hadn't called me yet. I was shocked when my mom started to cry at the other end of the line. I felt scared when I heard her say that, so I asked her what had happened. She finally told him, through tears, that morning that something terrible had happened. It sounds like their doorbell rang wildly, and then someone banged loudly on the door when she and my dad woke up. Jim, Caroline's son, was standing alone on the porch when they ran downstairs. That's it. He held a note and a small bag. My mom started crying as she talked about how scary it was to open the door and see their grandson there by himself, without Caroline or Nick, Caroline's husband. What did Caroline's message say about where she was or what was going on? I asked my mom. My mom then told me that Caroline had written in the note that she hated being a mom and was fed up. In the letter, she said she didn't want to raise her son and asked my parents and me to start right away. Being shocked by how real everything was made me feel uncomfortable. As my mom tried to talk about this on the phone, she started to cry more. My dad, who was desperately trying to call Caroline and her husband Nick, took the phone from her. The way he spoke made me feel rushed. He told me that Caroline and Nick's phones were off and that things were getting really bad. They were told that Caroline had asked for money a few days before. This meant that she might have taken the money and left her son with us. My dad told me I needed to go back home right away to help them look for Caroline. I still wasn't ready to accept that my sister had left her child in that situation, so I kept thinking about it. Even though I was scared, I knew I had to take care of myself. I told my dad in a cool way that I couldn't go home right now because I had a big test this week and couldn't skip it. I promised to do what I could to get in touch with Caroline, but I was unable to be there in person. My dad didn't like that answer. Not happy at all. He told me I was being silly because my family needed me right now, which made me mad. He talked to me like I had to be there. Because we're family, I felt like I owed them something by being there for them during this hard time. I wasn't going to let him hurt my feelings, though. As I fought back, I told him that being there wouldn't make things better. They haven't asked me how I'm doing or what I need in 2 years. I had to bring it up. I had to drop everything and run back to help them right away because they were in trouble. It didn't make sense to me, and they couldn't make me feel bad for going to my own place. After that, my dad told me I was being too mean to them while they were going through a hard time. It wasn't about the past or any old family troubles, he told me. All they needed was for me to be there for them. It was really about getting the family back together when things were pretty bad. He tried to make me feel bad for not going back to help them right away, as if I was being rude to them when they needed help. Ida for not letting my dad go home from a field trip because my sister left her son. Even though they haven't talked to me much in the last 2 years, I agree that it's strange that my parents called me straight away. Out of the blue, my mom, who doesn't call me very often, has been calling me several times a day, almost pleading with me to come home. I don't understand, and I feel like there must be another reason. They've never cared about things this much before, so why now? Some people have asked me to be clear. I'm very worried about Jimmy. The thought of my sister leaving her child behind breaks my heart. I feel terrible for him. Caroline not only ran away without warning, but she also left Jimmy at my parents' house, which I find strange. But I know they love Jimmy, and I trust they will take care of him, just like they always do for Caroline. I don't need to worry about taking care of Jimmy because my parents will do it, but in the end, what worries me the most is how my sister can go away without a trace. For some reason, I think there's more going on than what I've been told. It scares me that she would do something so bad. While I understand why my parents really want me to come home, I have never seen them need my help. Note 2, I haven't written in a week. While I was taking a break from my college test, I finally went to see my parents. It looked like my mom hadn't slept much because her eyes were red and puffy. She cried every day for a week. By the way my dad looked, it was clear that he was still afraid about everything. Jimmy did seem to be fine, though. I played with him and gave him a small treat. He was comfortable with my parents and didn't know what was going on around him. He even thought his parents were just taking a break and would be back soon. I knew I had to tell my parents everything when I was ready. The note Caroline gave to Jimmy interested me. I saw my parents looking at each other with worry when I asked them to show me the note. This made me even more worried. For a long time, my mom didn't get the note. I was getting ready to read it. When I read it, I was shocked that they left out a very important part of the truth. Caroline had not only left her son with my parents, but she had also left him for me. I didn't understand what I was reading. My sister told me she didn't like how my parents raised her after she wrote that. She said things that made me think she wished she was more like me, responsible and able. She wrote at the end of the note, "Thank you for leaving Jimmy with me. He will have a better chance at a good life. Maybe even the life she wishes she could have had." My parents looked at me with shock and asked, Why did my sister leave her son with me? Things changed. That's when my parents slowly told me the whole story. After my parents bought Nicholas and Caroline a nice apartment, they started using drugs. Even after Jimmy was born, they didn't care about what they had to do as parents. They were caught leaving more than once by my parents. Their kids, even when they were babies, were left home alone while they went out late at night to party with strangers. They would fight because they both used drugs. Caroline would sometimes beg for help at my parents' door with Jimmy in her arms. It felt like hearing a story about someone you don't know. I've always known my sister is a pain, but I thought that as a parent, she would be sick of it by now. But it's clear that she hasn't. They told me this wasn't right, even though they knew it was. They knew that I would judge them for sticking by Caroline through all of this crap. They even tried to get her to go to rehab, but she always refused. She doesn't go to her meetings or get help. My sister stole from them once when she needed money for drugs. At that point, my parents saw how dangerous things had become for Caroline and Jimmy. They had to watch out for and defend their son. Because of what was going on, they felt like they had to keep their child safe. My parents then told me they would call Child Protective Services on my sister and her husband and have them arrested for not caring for their son. It looked like this threat made Caroline lose it. She had been having a hard time being a mom for a long time. This was the last blow for her. It had been a week since she asked our parents for money. After that, she didn't say anything and left Jimmy on their porch. Some people I know said it was clear that she and Nick were dating. We no longer want to have children. They were sure they left their son on the porch, but neither phone worked. They were on the list of people who were missing that my parents made. Even though the police were there, they thought Caroline and Nick had probably left their kids on purpose, maybe to keep using drugs. Based on what happened, this seemed very possible. I was angry and sad at the same time as I heard what they said. I had no idea that my sister had been in pain for a long time, even though it was clear. Also, my parents told me this was the main reason they wanted me to come back. It was impossible for them to tell me the whole truth on the phone, because they were scared of what I would say. Then my dad told me that he and my mom were getting older, and that they couldn't always watch Jimmy, even though they liked doing it. He thought it would be a good idea for me to move back in with them, and try to be Caroline in Jimmy's life again. My mom agreed, yes. I think I could drop out of college and care for Jimmy for now since my sister wanted me to have him. I couldn't help but be shocked by their idea, but make fun of it. Were they crazy? I wasn't going to skip school to take care of my sister's kid. It was very clear to them that we needed to talk to CPS about this. They could take care of Jimmy if I didn't want to be his legal dad. From what we knew, it made the most sense to do what we did. I told my dad right away that this was a family matter, and that calling CPS might make things worse for Jimmy. My mom spoke up. I told them that my sister would be mad at me if I didn't do something because she had left her son with me, and that she and my brother would be angry with me. My dad thought I would do better. It hurt me what they said. I told them it didn't matter if I let someone down. It was about what I should do for Jimmy and me. Giving this a lot of thought was important before I rushed to make a decision that could change my life forever. They finally agreed to give me some time to think. Note 3: I haven't written anything in 2 months. To be clear, yes, that note was definitely written by my sister, because I know Caroline's work so well, I'm sure. She didn't write fake things. That's not true. They sent Caroline a lot of money every month to help her and her husband, but it was a waste of money. I saw their bank records. They even let me into Caroline's apartment since they had the key. My mom told me that the apartment would be left exactly how she said it would be. The floor was littered with empty liquor bottles. The cabinets and drawers were empty, and there was a strong, unpleasant smell. The fridge didn't have much in it, and the whole place was very dirty. I did call CPS and tell them everything I knew about what was going on with my sister and her husband. The least they can do for now is take care of Jimmy until Caroline or Nick get back. Knowing that Jimmy will be safe with them makes me feel a little better right now. I did say no to taking care of Jimmy when my parents really wanted me to. It was hard for me not to make a choice based on guilt because I felt bad about it. It would have been bad for Bobby too. I told them I couldn't let their other girls' bad decisions affect my life or my job. Someone told them that they would have to deal with what they did. They still haven't said sorry for taking money from my college fund. But they said they were sorry for buying my sister the apartment. To be clear, they own the apartment and let my sister and her husband live there for free.